Welcome to Nuggets with Sauce, the podcast dishing up golden nuggets of wisdom and insight you can really sink your teeth into. I'm your host, Michelle Arentz. My guests and I serve up a saucy take on common business challenges here that feeds your hunger for knowledge and thought leadership. So let's dig in. Hey, if you are tuning in, boy, do we have a treat for you today. And I'm going to say this one's especially for all you overwhelmed. I've got so many hats on my head right now. My neck is starting to kill me, leaders out there. You are tuned into the right conversation today here on Nuggets with Sauce. I am your host, Michelle Arentz, and I am thrilled as my guest today is Peter Allen. Peter, you and I have had so many wonderful conversations. Welcome to the show. I know we're going to have a blast digging into your expertise today on Nuggets. Can't wait to dive into that. But let's get the ball rolling here. As my guest, I always love to ask, can you tell our audience, without using your job title, because, don't want to get hung up on those little words on a business card, what fires you up? What gets you out of bed every day and makes Peter Allen go, man, this is how I'm going to make the world a better place?
Absolutely. Thank you, Michelle, for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here. We've had some great conversations for sure. So, what fires me up, right? So, the first thing that fires me up is Army beating Navy. I'm a West Point graduate. I'm gonna tell you right here out of the gate,
All
go
right.
Army, beat Navy. But the second thing that really fires me up is just really helping people. And when I say helping, that can take on so many different ways of doing that. But whether it's being a coach or inspiring somebody to get towards a goal or being a cheerleader, it's like I get out of bed every day looking for, well, who can I help today? Like, who can I help first? And there are so many ways you can do it. So it just gets me up. I'm excited. There's never a dull day. There's always a day to help somebody.
I love that. That's what I appreciate so much about you. You've got that mindset that says, hey, I want to help people stop tripping over themselves and, get ahead quicker and easier. And you've got the insights and the expertise to help them do that. Love that. Before we dive into some of that expertise that you're going to share, I always also love to ask, have you got a recommended read, watch, or listen for us? What should we be tuning into or paying attention to?
So here's one I've been reading a lot lately, and it's really sort of old school.
Mm, love reading.
John Wooden material, right? So John Wooden was coach of UCLA basketball, late 60s, early 70s, but a phenomenal teacher and sort of like pearls of wisdom. There's tons of books, tons of quotes. The serious side of me would say pick up anything from John Wooden. It'll be time well spent. The other thing would be like Andor, right? Andor TV show, part of the Star Wars thing.
Okay.
That TV show, I've watched the series end to end 4 times.
Wow.
One of the best pieces of content produced
Mm,
that I've seen in probably the past 5 years. Love it, and I would highly recommend it to everybody out there.
that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I'm still trying to get past how weirded out I felt by some of the reboot Star Wars movies. So
Some of it is out there. I don't know
I,
if I'd go to it, but definitely check Andor out.
I will get brave on that one. And the coaching piece, I'm sure we're gonna thread the needle on that one in our conversation today, around the who can't stand to have a good coach or some good wisdom from a good coach. So without any further ado, let's dive in and let's start chomping down on some of the nuggets that you've got to share, because just before we were kind of hitting record here, you and I have had multiple conversations, which is why I really wanted to have you on this podcast. But you've got some really good insights and some really good thoughts around things for our business leaders where are you kind of getting in your own way, and maybe
Right.
you need a little bit of that kind of coaching nudge to stop and think, like, are you for real? Are you really seriously telling me that this is okay? So can you just kind of,
Yeah.
you're having some conversations lately, you're saying you're noticing a pattern, right?
Yeah, so I have been. And so, recently I've been speaking with a lot of business owners really, and the topic that sort of keeps coming up and keeps popping for me is it's almost a direct quote, right? It's like I'm overwhelmed and I need help.
Hmm.
But I'm not getting it. and then the immediate reaction I have is like, why not? How
Yeah.
is it hard to pick up the phone? Is it hard to send an email that I need help?
Yeah.
And you start to like get into that conversation and unpack it a little bit. And I'm not a psychologist, but there's almost like a bit of paralysis that comes over people. They've got 100 things weighing them down. They've got all these Monday morning problems that they're thinking about on Sunday night. And so it like they kind of shrink into like a shrunken part of themselves,
Yeah.
and they're trying to get it all done, and yet they're just not putting the hand out to ask for help. And I
Yeah.
guess the message I have, yeah, go ahead.
Why do you think that is? I mean, I hear that too. I've run across that too with clients and leaders who are in that. Like I said at the top, it's like I've got so many hats jammed on my head. I'm trying to do so many things, like it's breaking my neck. And
Yeah,
why do you think? And again, I know neither you nor I
yeah.
or a psychologist haven't played one yet on TV. Here's to hoping. But what do you think? What's your sense of what's behind that? What's that roadblock for our leaders around the get some hats off your head,
Yeah,
get some of that thinking.
it's a great question. And I think some of it comes down to when you're a leader, you're looked at and expected to have the answers.
Mm.
So because of that, I can't show weakness in the form of, well, if I get help, am I really the right leader for this?
Right,
And
right.
and I think it just starts to feed on itself. So I definitely think that's part of it.
Okay.
A lot of times I've also seen where leaders have been amazing individual contributors. And so their entire career,
Right,
the reason they were successful was they were able to go get so many things done by themselves and
right.
pulling in all these tasks. And now they're at the point of exhaustion, right? And so there's a lot of things I think playing into that. And
Yeah,
and you need somebody to maybe tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, I need you to do a timeout since we're on the basketball analogy, and
yeah,
and let's look at what you're doing. Let's look at what's on your plate.
yeah.
Is this really a good use of your time?
Right. Well, look, you've just dropped about 5 hot nuggets on the plate. I think we're going to dip into some spicy sauce in the conversation around it. I mean, I'm picking up on some points. I just want to back up a sec because I just think they're so worth repeating. I think it's very interesting that you said, and I think it's very true. And maybe our listeners, maybe this resonates for some people who are watching or listening. But like the idea of like I'm the leader. I must have all the answers. That's a
Right.
trap. There's a Star Wars moment. Hey, Luke, it's a trap. Okay. Being in that
Don't do
mindset,
it.
I've got to have all the answers, I think is kind of a leader trap, right? Like, do ya? Who says? Who says that? And I think tied to that, and this is one of those things that maybe for some people is a little uncomfortable, but I think is worth getting into. You mentioned the idea that does that mean I'm weak? Is that a weakness thing? If I have to admit that I don't know, what are they going to think of me? Does that make me look weaker or stronger? I think there's just an awful lot in that space right there. Let's just chew on that for a second.
Yeah.
A couple other things that I just think like I don't want to lose sight either of some of the other pieces that you shared with us too around you've got to really think about there's that transition piece like, hey, I was so successful when I did this at this level, but I'm not at that level anymore. I don't want to lose sight of that. In fact, I'm going to jot a note because
Yeah.
brain is going crazy right now. But like, hey, let's dig into that a little bit. What do you think, or what's your advice or a key thing to give a leader who's maybe that's speaking to them when they're saying, I can't admit I don't know. They're all looking at me.
Yeah, it's really interesting because they are looking at you and they're looking at how you handle things, and eh, that fear is holding you back, right? So that fear is holding you back from asking for help. And so the way when I'm talking to somebody about it and I'm trying to like take them to the side and get past this issue is like, like, well, you feel weak, right? You feel weak. Why? Well, I should have the answers. Well, to
Okay.
your point, who says you should have the
Yeah,
answers?
should.
Yeah. Should is such a bad word, right? We keep shoulding on ourselves all the time, and we shouldn't should on
Oh,
ourselves.
I just should my pants.
Yeah, I just should my pants. I'm shoulding all over you right now, and I
A
shouldn't be
pile of
doing that.
should right now. But
Um,
you know what? But that's a great way of thinking about it.
yeah,
Love
it's
that. I'm gonna run with that. Sitting in a pile of should.
Yeah, it's like it's you know, you put some tension, like take the tension, get rid of the tension, and find the humor in it. But there's
It says
there
who?
is a breakthrough moment, and if you can keep working with the person to finally say, "You're right, I don't have to have all the answers."
Mhm.
And once I start to bring that wisdom into me, and I ask for the help, and then I get the help, I've actually made myself a stronger leader. And like, how have I done that? Well, I've learned to trust people to come in and help me. They've improved really from actually getting to solve a problem that you may have tried to solve yourself.
Right.
You've built a better relationship with them. And but it is baked into everybody. Like I came out of the army, I came out of military leadership, and you know, leaders are strong, leaders have the answers, leaders point the direction, and we go in this way, and I'm gonna solve all these problems if I need to. And there are so many sort of unhealthy behaviors just locked all up in that
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have to wind back.
It's a pressure cooker. And, you know, God forbid I don't have, and by the way, not only do I have to have an answer, I have to have a pat answer and it better fit like a 10-second soundbite or else.
Right.
It's an unrealistic amount of pressure, not just on our leaders, frankly, on anybody. I mean, the idea that I can't raise my hand and say, I don't know, culturally is not good for your business either, right? Like if everybody sits around saying, well, if I have to follow the leader and the leader sees not knowing or ambiguity or anything like that as a gap or a deficiency, whoa, what does that do to innovation? You know, there's a big shutdown, I think, for us, right? I'm gonna shut down. I don't even want to open my mouth anymore. Like I just,
Yeah. Right.
you
Like
know,
once you're afraid as a leader, you know, it doesn't mean you're not nervous or an outcome's maybe not going to go the way you want it to go, but you just get into a negative flywheel effect. You
right,
know,
right.
I'm afraid to trust. I'm afraid to try something new. If this goes bad, we're all going to look really foolish for it, or we're going to get
Right.
embarrassed. And we've really reached this point where you have to be okay making those mistakes. You have to be okay not having the answers,
Yeah.
and bringing in the best of the team and bringing in the best of the people around you to get to the best answer, right? And
Why do you have people on your team? Even as a solopreneur,
exactly.
I know I've got people that I can call you. I've got people. This is why I have a network. This is why I have trusted people. Or, I hire the right person who knows the stuff that I don't because I can't do it all. Yeah. And so when you're leading a team or leading an organization, look to your people. Look to your people to say, like, hey, honestly, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, you definitely should be looking to those people, right? You know, why did you hire them? You hired them for these types of things. You need to trust them to bring you that best information, and together
Yeah.
up to that point where you're gonna make the answer and solve the problem, and then go forward.
Yeah, and if I dare riff off, your love of Star Wars, and I know, Yoda's not quite in the Andor thing, but I'm just like, where does where does the path to the dark side start? Yoda tells us with fear.
There you go.
Fear
Yeah,
leads to anger, and I can't remember what else
and
was,
all the other things. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
With that fear, I fear that I fear for myself, fear of others, and that trust. You mentioned trust is super huge in that space, right? Like trusting yourself to know when you can't trust yourself anymore and when can you trust others. And by the way, if you can't trust other people in your company, what are you paying them for?
I I
I don't understand that.
I
Like
don't either.
I constantly talk about
Yeah.
full paycheck for partial performance. If you're watching or listening and any of this is ringing bells for you and you're going like, if I really sit back and think about it, I don't know if I trust other people in my company. I don't know that I trust them to understand when I say I don't have the answer. Like we've got a disconnect right there. That's a leadership disconnect. That's a cultural disconnect. There's a whole bunch going on there, but I think you've really nailed it there that like, it's not all on you. Look
Right.
at your people. Anything other than that is you said it, is pretty toxic. And if we build a culture that says, I can't admit I don't know, I can't admit that I'm wrong, I can't admit that we don't have an answer, it doesn't mean we're never going to find it. That's going to kill your innovation. It's going to kill your agility. It's going to kill anybody's willingness to raise their hand and say, I will try.
Yes,
I mean, I've
you're
seen this
totally
happen
right. You're
fast. in a classroom
music
with
to my ears.
learners. They won't
Yeah,
even they won't even try to answer the question because they figure, why open my mouth? I might just get shot down.
exactly. Right. And then eventually, so what have you then created? You've created a team and a company around you where they're always going to look to you again for the answer. And we know that only your answer is the right answer. And so everybody else is just sub-optimized in what they can do at their job. And culture starts getting torn apart, morale starts taking a hit. It's
Engagement, just
like you said, innovation, all of it starts to go down. Camaraderie, it's like,
yeah.
and then though, but then what's funny is like, then you come right back to the next issue, so to speak, which is like, then you look at the leader and the leader's like, why am I the only person that can do this? Well, because you're the only person that you enabled to do it, right?
Made
So
your own vicious cycle, right? Oh, I don't
exactly.
trust any of you to do any of this. I'll do
Right.
it. And now I'm exhausted. Why do I have to do
Yeah.
everything for everybody
Well, I
else?
have to solve all your problems for you. Well, you didn't trust me before. I've had no repetitions, no at-bats to
Yeah.
actually attempt to solve this problem. I haven't gotten better. So you just continue to feed the cycle over and over and over and over. And you're overwhelmed and then you're not getting help. But then you take on more
You're
and
not
it's,
allowing help at that point. That's the other thing. Like that would be,
yeah,
I don't know. I love my analogies, but to me that'd be like you're gonna go to your doctor because you've got all these symptoms, something's not right, you need help, you can't figure out what it is. Your doctor says, hey, I figure it's this, and you just say, oh, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about.
yeah, yep.
Really, what qualifies you to know anything about me, my body, my health? I'll just go suffer over here a little bit further because I
I'll
don't
just Google WebMD for a bit and figure it out myself.
right, because that's, we can trust that. Yeah, and never mind and again, the untapped potential that otherwise could be sitting in your organization that somebody just hasn't, for whatever reason, isn't raising their hand, but you could tap in. Good leaders will tap into their people. Good leaders, and that trust piece again also goes back to the delegating.
Right,
Delegating is one of the hardest things, I think, for leaders to learn how to do and do well and do confidently. I can't let the baby go. I can't
right.
trust that you're not going to make it cry or drop it on its head. Okay, well, how do you get to the point that you can let the baby go?
It's funny because I think you probably see, yeah, I'm really going out on a limb here, but I think you probably see sort of some similarities in how sometimes people parent, right? Like,
Oh, yes.
okay,
Yeah.
I'm tired of doing the dishes every night, so I'm going to have my son do these dishes. I'm going to delegate this task down to him. He starts doing it, but I don't like the way he's washing it or stacking the dishwasher, or so I'm going to then come do it again. I'm going to take this task away from him. Nope, Pete, just delegate the dishes to Owen. Owen's gonna do it. Are the dishes coming out clean out of the dishwasher in the morning?
Right.
They are. Do I necessarily care quite how he got there? No, I don't. He solved the problem. He got there. Like,
Yeah.
trust your team enough that they're going to get there. They might not do it exactly the way you would do it, and that's okay. They're different people and they lean on different skills and
Yeah. Unless that matters. I mean, in which
unless it
case, if
matters.
you're in a highly
Yeah,
regulated something or a process
right,
is extremely important and
right.
you've got to do it this way. I mean,
Yeah,
I agree with you. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I'm just gonna throw that one little caveat in there
right,
because I feel like if it really does matter how it gets done, then you've got to make sure as a leader, whether you're the leader in the kitchen, like the
right,
dishwasher's got to be loaded this way, or whatever it's got, this stuff's got to happen a certain way. Outside of that, to your point, like, and this is like, step back as a leader and think, what's the most important thing? Is the
right,
most important thing, is the most important thing that, to your point, the dishes got clean. Now,
right,
if the dog licked them clean, we have an issue. There, we're back to the
right.
how
Yeah,
thing. But if
that,
it's like, yeah, you load the dishwasher differently than I do, or whatever, that's hardly the point. So trust them
yeah.
that, as long as they know what the end game is and what the most important factor is, and you didn't do anything kind of crazy in between, let them go.
Yeah, you can't violate any laws or FDA rules or
No,
any
let's
of these
not break any laws
processes.
on the dishwasher
The
or whatever.
I've seen like two great things. One was like a CEO who culture was very important. They were looking for a way to engage the team and celebrate, you know, wins and victories and holidays and parties and birthdays and all these types of things. And what she ended up doing was creating a team, and the team membership rotated.
Hmm.
But the team was then fully empowered to create the events, run the events, and they built an amazing process and team and camaraderie and it just and membership on that team would then change every year.
Mm.
But the CEO stepped back and said,
Yeah,
"Hey, you're the team, you're engaged, go
yeah.
do it." And they loved it. Like that was one. And then
Well,
the
that critical word that you shared there, the number one word out of everything that you shared, great story that you shared there, empowered.
yeah,
They were empowered. So she said, here you go, team. I will step back. You've got what you need. If you don't, come see me.
exactly.
Love that story. Yeah.
And it worked really, really well. And then one of the things that I learned very early in my career in the Army was a concept called commander's intent. So when we had any mission to perform, it didn't matter what the mission was, usually the leadership 2 levels above you, right? So whatever your level was, the leader 2 levels above you would say, this is my intent for what needs to happen.
Mm.
We need to take that hill right over there. At the end of the day, we're going to be on that hill. We're going to be oriented to the east, and we're going to have this. Got it. And then they'd write very, very detailed plans, that level and the level below them and your level of what you're going to do to get there. But you knew the intent 2 levels up.
Mm.
So when that plan totally broke loose and went to shit, because it always did,
Did it go to shit or did it go to should?
if you went to
That's what I
shit
want
or
to know
shit
now.
or both or hell or whatever,
Right.
you everybody still knew what the commander wanted done. At the end
Right.
of the day, we need to be on that hill, oriented east in these positions.
Right.
So it was like, get there.
Back
And
there.
you
Yeah.
you now know the intent, but I can't control every little thing that's going to happen on that battlefield. But you all know where you need to be, right? So there is a lot of trust there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you see the bigger picture and you go to it. And I think that there's a lot of really good lessons from the military and that leadership style that never really get talked about out in the corporate world, but
Right.
they're very, very effective.
And what I love there, and having not served in the military or anything like that, but as I understand it too, like I think this kind of old school thing of like it's all about barking orders and just
Right.
cut up and do whatever. I mean, I don't think that's quite GI Joe isn't quite reality.
Yeah.
There's a lot more stuff put into that mix, but I think there are a lot of like that's a fabulous approach to it because again that you've just dunked a whole pile more great nuggets into some really good sauce over here because that also speaks back to something else that I didn't want us to lose sight of that you said earlier in our conversation here today around the challenge that some business leaders have around the getting into the headspace, making that transition into that leadership role, which I think threads the needle very nicely with what you just shared. Like at this point, when you are now in the top tiers of whatever it is in your organization, whether you're the owner, founder, CEO, whatever that, this is why I don't always like getting hung up on titles, but
Right.
when you're at that very, very high owner, top leader kind of level, what are your intentions? And does
Right.
anybody know? And are they equipped to execute on that? And knowing that your job at that point is to think bigger and broader. You need to now be thinking 30,000 feet, not 5,000 feet or on the ground. And so, I always say, like, what made you a rock star before you got this job, whatever that is, isn't going to help you now. And
Right.
as you were sharing earlier, I think like this just dovetails in really nicely because, when you were the guy who was like it's my job to get up, or gal for that matter, to get up the hill. I'm not the person who's thinking up the intention of getting up the hill. It's my job to execute getting us up the hill with all our equipment, everybody in one piece. It's a different game and a different mindset and a different skill set to be the intentional 2 levels up leader, right? Being a
Absolutely.
private ain't the same thing as being the admiral.
That's right.
I'm sorry,
And
probably just mixed
no,
up
you're
my military
you,
side, whatever.
don't worry, you cross services and it's
I'm
all good.
what? Be collaborative, people.
Yeah.
We all work
Yeah.
together.
You have Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force.
There you
We're
go. So
all in.
private versus the general. Thank you.
Yeah.
But that's such a mission critical thing. And so when you're the leader and you're sitting in this seat and you're going, I'm wearing too many hats, I feel overwhelmed. How much of that is coming from you are far too enmeshed in doing the practical and the tactical
Hmm.
when you should be doing the intentional and theoretical, and let other people that you're spending good money on every couple weeks on a paycheck to execute the practical and tactical for you. Am I correct in my thinking
No,
here?
I think you're totally right. And I think probably one of the easy answers on that is like, I feel so good, right? Like when I do the tactical, I'm good at it. I can get it done quick and efficient. I
Correct.
get this, this high from doing it. And meanwhile, I should be doing these other things. There's the word should again, but
Mhm.
I need to be doing those, and I need to be having the team do these other things. And you actually just said a great thing I was thinking of this other topic, and you said equipped, right? That the team needs to be equipped.
Yeah.
And in the military, like that's really straightforward, right? You get all this equipment, you get weapons, you get supplies, logistics. That
Go take
equipping
the
is
hill with your bare hands.
right.
Or go take the hill with all the equipment we've got. You might want bullets to go with that.
Yeah, you might want bullets and helpful. Yeah, the other thing in equipping, or at least, having you ready to do something is training, right? And when
Amen.
you think when you think about your team and you think about training, and a lot of times I was just talking to a business owner, and he's outfitting a bunch of new equipment in his plant, and he's buying like $500,000 of equipment. It's going to go faster, be more efficient, have new capabilities.
Sick.
So that's amazing. That's awesome. What are you doing for your team? And he kind of looked at me and he's like, well, and it's like, I said, no, what are you doing for your team? Like, what are you doing for the rest of the business? You've got creatives, you've got project managers in your team. You certainly have people that run equipment. You've got a finance team, accounting team, human resources team. You've got all these people in your company. What are you doing to equip them to get better, faster, more capable, more efficient? And, he kind of stopped, but I think it's not done nearly
Yeah.
as well as we need to do it
Yeah.
in anywhere.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very common challenge is, and the sexy new software, the shiny new toy, the piece of equipment. I've seen this happen too. Great. I love that you shared that story because I think that is a lot more common than anybody really wants to admit, because it's always a lot easier to like plug and play something, like
Hmm.
install a piece of equipment or a piece of software and flip the switch, which by the way, also probably requires, does somebody know how to use this thing? Like,
Right.
to your point, that's going to probably need some training. So you're still
Yes.
back to like, there's no point in investing in something that nobody knows how to take advantage of or use to their best ability. So you're still back to that. And I'd love to touch on this too, is that not only do you need to, and I think you'll agree with me, not only do you need to make sure that your people are well trained and well equipped, however they need to get done what needs to be done. What do you
Right.
do for yourself as a leader to make yourself
Yeah.
well equipped and ready to rock? So how are you moving yourself up to this new level? I mean, I've seen it in the space of new CEO, new to the role. What are you doing? Yes, you're putting out fire. I get it. There's a lot of fires to put out. I understand that. But what are you doing to get your own oxygen mask on here and help yourself? Where's the investment in your ability to rise to this exciting new occasion? Are you getting yourself trained, prepared? Now we're back to the very beginning of our conversation. Maybe you need a good coach. Maybe you need
Yeah.
whatever.
Perhaps training, or
Yeah,
a a degree program, or a coach, or a peer group, or an advisory group, or maybe a million other things.
right.
But I mean, such a great point. Like
Level up,
what are you doing? And what are
level
you
up.
doing when your first line level becomes supervisors, and when supervisors become managers, and managers to directors or vice presidents?
Yeah.
It's vital,
Mhm.
and yet we don't do it, right? It's not in the budget, right? Like training typically isn't in the budget, and there's always time and money to do it over again, but
Right.
there's no time or money to train.
Right. There's time and money to, apparently deal with your angry customers who are
Right.
on the downhill, they're at the bottom of the hill of whatever you're shoving down on them.
Yeah.
So, I always say, like, basically take any of these things going on. How do your customers like that? Because everything that you're doing in your business starts with you and it works its way down. And in a manner of speaking, the last people to get whatever result it is that you're doing in your business are your customers. How do they like that?
Yeah.
How do they like the rework? How do they like the customer service person who doesn't know how to serve? How do they like the I can't fix it? It went missing. I don't know what to do. I can't help you. Not my department.
That's my favorite. Not my department.
Not my
Not my
department.
problem.
Right, not my problem. I'll tell you why. Because my top leader is the person, the guy or the gal who's taken it all on.
Yeah.
And they're they're 3 minutes away from absolute burnout,
Right. Every day of their life.
every
Yeah.
day of their life. And boy, what a great way to live, Um, I'm just saying, like,
True.
let's just spend a minute or two here on because I think, I love this, we got so many
Yeah.
things gelling together here. And you talked about, I think you touched on some things that make me go, how, can we get one good nugget on being more intentional moving forward? Now that you've shared what you've shared, we've discussed what we've shared here. How could I, as a leader in my business, be a little more intentional, maybe a lot more intentional around this? Get the weight of the world off your shoulders, start trusting and start doing some things that are going to help you be, on the business instead of in the business, as we like to say.
Yeah. It's interesting because, like, well, let's assume that they've had this epiphany and this awareness moment that they need to do that.
Yeah.
Um, one thing simple that you can do, right, is start listing these things off, right? Like in terms of, sort of love to do it, hate to do it, my level work, lower level work, or find your sort of 2x2 matrix of all these things that you're doing in your day and in your week, meetings you're attending, tasks you're accountable for, things that you've taken on. And I think you really have to take a really hard look at it and say, okay, there are things that are really meant for this level of this position. It's leadership of the department, management of my staff, accountability for certain numbers, metrics, performance standards in the company, whatever those things tend to be. Then there's a lot of other things that are going on, right? Which is um, leading this meeting over here, but you've got 3 levels of account managers that could be leading it, or being the primary responder to a particular customer set that really you've got other people that are accountable for, or it could be just really simple basic things like I review cost models, or I review this when I really should have my finance team looking at that, or I should like just conduct an inventory
Ooh,
of the
yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And then really draw a cut list and say, look, these things down here, they do not make the cut list of what this position needs to do. I need to delegate those. So I'm going to elevate myself up. And then as you look for the delegation, right, get these things to the right places, the people below you might need to actually be doing the same thing. Because
Yeah.
the chances are, if you've done that, they've done the same thing. And
I
so,
love that.
at every level, there has to be this sort
Yeah.
of exercise of what's getting delegated, so I'm elevating back up.
Right. Right. I love that. I love that cascade effect. And I think where my head goes with that too is like, yes, at all levels, as much as you can do that. And then the other thing, back to the delegating and back to the trust. And then
Mhm.
let's just wrap this all up with a nice bow on top by saying, and then of course, if you feel that you can't trust the people to delegate to them, then we have to go back to what are you doing to develop and train them so that they are trustworthy. So
Yeah.
you can trust that they know what they're doing and you can hand the task over to them. Now we're back to that. Be intentional about you and your development as a leader, getting yourself transitioned into that right space. Make sure that everybody, however you want to call that, hierarchically in your company system, is also right set for that. And then make sure that you're intentional about the investment in your people to say, we can all confidently look at each other in the eye and go, I trust Peter, I trust you to know what you're doing. I know it because we've developed you. I trust that you've got the skill set, the knowledge, the capability. I am going to empower you to take this on.
Yeah.
Take that hat off my head. I got room for other things now, and you're probably feeling a lot better for where you're headed. And again, that's a growth opportunity for you, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. 100% agreement. I think I would love to see more companies being intentional about putting training into their budgets, with a plan in mind, right? Because if you are, let's say, and you have to also, I think it's not going to be necessarily all accomplished in Q1,
No.
right? Like, think about learning a musical instrument, or you're picking up dance, or you're in a sport and you're trying to like advance yourself to the next level, or language. Well, you have milestones, and you unlock these achievements with practice and with training and with time. And so, but where can you be on 12/31/2025 if you started with a really solid program and you formed it up in Q4 of this year, and you launched and launched and pushed and pushed? You can be at
Yep.
what, 10, 20, 30, 50% more capable as a business in 12 months
Yeah.
if you set a tangible goal to get there and you're intentional about it. So
Love
I,
that.
I think, that's something leaders need to make sure they've got a little bit of a marathon pace to it as well. And
Yep.
that comes with your position.
I love that. That is a move forward. For anybody watching or listening, that is fantastic advice. Be intentional, plan ahead, think ahead. Where are you going to be a little over a year from now? And yes, you can do it. It is progress. And I think, Peter, you and I would both agree that if you don't do anything, you're going to be sitting right where you are a year from now, with a broken neck from too many hats on your head as a leader, and a whole lot of other issues going on because we weren't intentional enough, we weren't trusting enough, we weren't, transitioning enough in our space. It can be done, and you can't. And right here, right now, we're going to finish this. Peter, we're going to pinky swear that it is okay to say, I don't know, and ask for help, right?
That's right. 100%.
Pinky swear. It's
Pinky
okay.
swear.
All right. That's awesome. Thanks so much, Peter, for sharing your great nuggets and insight with us today. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We will catch you again soon. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Nuggets with Sauce. I hope we fed your appetite for insights and information on how to improve your business. Be sure to like and subscribe so you never go hungry for more valuable thought leadership.